Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bold and Beautiful today. Ridge responds to Taylor's marriage question in Baker's warrant. Katie Logan hoped Brooke Logan was preoccupied with thoughts of a certain sailor, but instead of Nick Marone, Brooke was fixated with Ridge Forrester. Brooke continued to believe that Ridge would eventually leave Taylor Hayes and return to her, but Katie was concerned that things might be different this time. During Tuesday's B&B episode at Il Giardino, Nick surreptitiously overheard Taylor and Ridge talking at an adjacent table. Ridge was concerned that Taylor's constant discussion of the future and its direction was related to his response to Nick sniffing around Brooke. Taylor acknowledged that she was a little taken aback by Ridge's actions, but she focused on their relationship and the level of commitment Ridge was prepared to give. According to Taylor, she was thinking about their future together as husband and wife because she woke up peacefully next to Ridge this morning. Ridge appeared to be trying to conceal his uneasiness after Taylor proposed to him. However, Nick, who was still listening in, was amused by this suggestion. Sheila Sharp offered to assist her granddaughter pack up her things at Luna Nozawa's flat, but Luna was determined to stay in Los Angeles. Sheila emphasized that she loved John Finnegan enough to keep her distance from him and let his joy be sufficient. Luna claimed that she had been avoiding everyone, aside from Will Spencer, even though it was more difficult. Luna raved to Sheila about Will's attractiveness and texted him about it. Luna said she had been using her origami as a diversion from Finn since Sheila praised it. Sheila understood that Luna was referring to Will because she was looking for a better diversion and made hints about needing something truly wonderful to look forward to. Since Will and Electra Forrester had been spending more time with the children, Finn and Steffi Forrester updated them on the increased security at the Cliff House. At Finn's request, Deputy Chief Bradley Baker arrived and expressed his wish for better news. Regretfully, the pardon had cleared Luna's record, therefore it was impossible to re-incarcerate her without committing any new offenses. Finn pondered whether they might demonstrate Luna's malice toward Steffi, but Steffi believed Luna was too intelligent to confess it to anybody there. Will felt he would be able to get a confession from Luna after she texted him a selfie. Electra said that Luna was fixated on Will, but Steffi was dubious and worried about Finn. Baker agreed to look into obtaining a warrant and putting everything up after Will reassured everyone that his plan would succeed and offered to wear a wire. Will lied about ending his relationship with Electra and texted Luna in response to her selfie, saying he wanted to see her tattoo in person. When Luna told Sheila that Will wanted to come see her, she was overjoyed. When he went back with Will, he was sure he could talk to Luna and get her to confess that she was trying to get Steffi. Will stated they were in after Luna texted her address. Will argued that once his strategy was successful, they wouldn't have to worry about Luna after Finn and Steffi urged him to exercise caution. In the simmering tension of Los Angeles's glittering facade, where fashion, passion, and betrayal coexist under a golden sun, the emotional storm swirling around the Forresters took on new weight as Deputy Chief Bradley Baker prepared to issue a warrant that would unravel more than just legal consequences. It would stir buried desires, shatter pretenses, and force long-standing loyalties into the light. At the center of this hurricane stood Ridge Forrester, caught in a whirlwind between two formidable women, Taylor Hayes, the picture of poised resolve with a question poised on her lips, and Brooke Logan, his eternal compass, ever present in the shadows of his heart despite her insistence that she was no longer waiting. Yet no matter how far she tried to distance herself, Katie Logan sensed that Brooke's resolve was fragile, hanging by the thinnest of threads, not because she doubted her sister's strength, but because she knew Ridge still held pieces of Brooke that time and Taylor's efforts had failed to claim. Meanwhile, Katie herself felt the pull of conflict, observing the unfolding drama with wary eyes and wondering whether this iteration of Ridge's romance with Taylor would be different or whether history was, as always, merely repeating itself under a fresh coat of emotional paint. On this fateful Tuesday at Il Giardino, a familiar haunt where secrets often found air and truths were overheard through the rustling of menus and the clinking of wine glasses, Ridge and Taylor sat in cautious proximity, their conversation laced with expectation and subtle dread. Taylor's voice, usually calm and deliberate, quivered slightly with hope as she broached the topic of their future, not just the comfortable now, but the tomorrow that required vows, rings, and the kind of promise Ridge had always struggled to keep when Brooke's memory loomed large. Her proposal, delivered with the confidence of a woman who had seen Ridge at his most broken and loved him still, landed like a stone in still water. Ridge, seasoned and deflecting, tried to mask his discomfort, his brow furrowed more from the weight of indecision than from the romantic implications. Unbeknownst to them, a familiar figure lurked in the periphery, Nick Marone, once a central rival in the battle for Brooke's heart, now a bemused spectator sipping espresso from the next table, smirking as he listened to Taylor's heartfelt plea and Ridge's stumbling silence. Nick, ever the cynic in matters of the heart, seemed less interested in Ridge's potential answer than in what the hesitation revealed, that Ridge, even now, wasn't entirely present. That part of him still resided in memories soaked in Brooke's perfume and the countless chances they'd wasted but never quite extinguished. Ridge's silence spoke volumes, and Taylor, for all her optimism, seemed to feel the gravity of it even as she tried to salvage the moment with assurances and forced smiles. As this delicate moment unfolded, a parallel story crackled with tension across the city, where Luna Nozawa stood at a critical juncture, her loyalty to Finn strained and her actions increasingly erratic. At her apartment, Sheila, sharp, matriarchal and manipulative, offered to help her granddaughter pack, only to be met with resistance as Luna refused to leave Los Angeles. The city held too much, too many ties, some dangerous, some thrilling, all unavoidable. Sheila, for her part, revealed a flicker of maturity rare in her checkered past, recalling how she'd loved John Finn Finnegan enough to walk away for his happiness, a choice that left its mark on her. Yet Luna, young and impulsive, could not emulate that sacrifice. Her obsession, thinly veiled behind origami cranes and cryptic texts, had a new target, Will Spencer, a connection that danced between flirtation and manipulation. When Luna gushed about Will's allure, Sheila's concern deepened, suspecting this was more than a crush, it was a distraction from rejection, a pivot away from pain, one that could turn dark if not checked. Across town at the Cliff House, Finn and Steffi Forrester were already reckoning with Luna's presence and the danger it posed. With their children increasingly exposed, the couple found themselves in difficult discussions about safety, trust, and Luna's true motives. Electra Forrester and Will had been spending more time around the family, necessitating heightened security, an indication that emotional drama had crossed into potential threat territory. Enter Deputy Chief Bradley Baker, called in at Finn's request, bearing little hope. The legal bind was clear, Luna's record had been expunged, her crimes buried under the weight of a pardon that neutered justice. With no new charges, their hands were tied, unless she could be caught red-handed. The law had failed to hold Luna accountable, but Will, sharp and calculating, saw a loophole. If Luna could be coaxed into a confession, perhaps under the impression of intimacy, a wiretap could serve as the evidence they needed. Electra bristled at the idea of her ex using emotional bait, but even she had to admit Luna's obsession could be their only leverage. Steffi was skeptical, her maternal instincts battling against a desire for resolution, but Baker was already considering the logistics of securing a warrant. The decision, while tactical, was also deeply personal. For Steffi, Luna's betrayal cut deep. This was not just a woman scorned, this was a threat to her family, a reminder of how easily the past could resurface in dangerous new shapes. As the plan took form, Will leaned into his role, texting Luna a carefully crafted message about wanting to see her tattoo and falsely claiming he had broken up with Electra. The trap was set. Luna, thrilled by the message, shared her excitement with Sheila, gushing about Will's sudden attention and hopeful for a romantic encounter that would restore her sense of self-worth. Unaware that she was walking into a wiretap operation, Luna texted her address, sealing the moment that would define her next chapter. Back at Il Giardino, the tension around Ridge's answer lingered in the air. Taylor, despite her confident posture, began to notice Ridge's gaze wandering, not toward the future they were building, but toward the ghosts he never laid to rest. Brooke. Always Brooke. Even now, with Katie wishing she would move on, Brooke couldn't deny that Ridge remained her unfinished symphony. She had tried to root for his happiness with Taylor, had tried to convince herself that Nick's return meant something new, something liberating, but it didn't. Because every time she closed her eyes, it wasn't the sailor's kiss she remembered, it was Ridge's broken apologies, his lingering touch, the way he said her name when he was vulnerable. Taylor, for all her grace and strength, was proposing not just a future, but an ultimatum: choose now, or let me go. Ridge knew the weight of this moment. He also knew that any answer would cause pain. And as Nick watched with an amused expression, one thing was certain: whether the answer was yes, no, or a non-committal pause, the ripple effects would touch every member of their tangled family. Meanwhile, the wire operation was moving forward. Baker filed for the warrant, and Will prepared to play the role of deceiver, luring Luna into a trap that could redeem him in Elektra's eyes and bring justice for Steffi. Yet beneath the surface, Will's motivations were more complicated. Part of him genuinely wanted to protect the Forresters, but part of him was curious about Luna, her intentions, her vulnerabilities, and what made her cross the lines so many wouldn't. The setup felt like a performance, and in that moment, Will wasn't sure whether he was the actor or the audience. Luna, oblivious to the web tightening around her, focused instead on crafting a moment of intimacy, believing that Will saw her, not as a threat, not as a case, but as a person deserving of love. And as she lit candles and folded her latest piece of origami, the tragedy of her character became clear: she wanted to be loved, to be noticed, to be chosen, and in that desperation, she had unknowingly become the villain in someone else's story. As the evening drew on, and as Ridge still hadn't answered Taylor's proposal, time began to splinter into fragments, each character held hostage by choices that had yet to be made. Would Ridge finally commit to a future that offered stability but not necessarily passion? Would Brooke continue to deny her feelings, or would she fight once more for a love that refused to fade? Would Luna confess under pressure, or would she outmaneuver them all? And in the middle of it all, Baker's warrant loomed, not just a piece of paper, but a symbol of consequences, of truth, and of the final unraveling of secrets long buried. The answers would come in time, but for now, silence reigned, a silence filled with hope, regret, longing, and the inescapable gravity of decisions deferred too long. Is Ridge and Taylor getting married soon? Ridge is stunned by Taylor. Although Taylor Hayes might be unpredictable, Ridge Forrester never anticipated that she would ask him to marry her when they went out to lunch at Il Giardino. Since they were living in sin in his father's immoral home, Ridge believed that they were getting along well. However, he suddenly realizes that Taylor undoubtedly desires more. Ridge has promised not to let Taylor down this time, even if he still harbors feelings for Brooke Logan, but he isn't sure he's ready for another marriage. He had just gotten engaged to Brooke approximately 3 months prior, following a speedy annulment and a near marriage to Taylor 3 years prior. Thus, when Taylor pops the question, she will at least have that going for her. Is Ridge prepared for marriage, even if he seems obligated to stay with her? This might be the only way for Taylor to feel safe in their relationship. How about Brooke? Katie Logan has a few things to say to Brooke regarding her man predicament as Ridge responds to Taylor. Despite being a member of Team Ridge for many years, Katie is aware of the toll that back and forth has put on her sister. She believes that Nick Marone might be her best option at this point, therefore she has some advice for Brooke. Will's significant action. John Finn Finnegan and Steffi Forrester Finnegan eagerly await the outcome of Will Spencer's scheme. He tells Luna Nozawa that he dumped Elektra Forrester and entices her to Forrester Creations. Luna is duped, but will she be tricked for long, or is Will going to end up in more danger than he could have ever dreamed? Elektra and Hayes are caught in the actual crossfire of this tragedy in some way. Il Giardino, once the backdrop of many clandestine meetings and public confrontations, witnessed a moment that could very well change the course of the Forrester family once again. Ridge Forrester sat across from Taylor Hayes, their chemistry undeniable, their shared history layered in complexity, and their future uncertain. The air was thick not just with the scent of garlic bread and espresso, but with a question that stunned Ridge into silence. Will you marry me? Taylor's words were direct, heartfelt, and uncharacteristically spontaneous. Though Taylor is known for her fierce independence and emotional intelligence, this was not a calculated move. It came from a place of love, vulnerability, and, perhaps, desperation. Ridge, caught mid-bite, blinked in disbelief. After everything they had been through, from broken marriages to reconciliations, tragic accidents, rivalries, and misunderstandings, Taylor's proposal felt both inevitable and utterly shocking. She wasn't asking for a grand gesture. She wasn't demanding a ring. She simply wanted a commitment. A declaration. A moment of truth in a life filled with half-truths. But Ridge wasn't ready to answer. Not yet. Chapter 2, Living in Sin, Loving in Limbo. For weeks, Ridge and Taylor had been living together in Eric Forrester's opulent mansion, ironically the very same space where so many of Ridge's relationships unraveled. The air of that house held memories of Brooke Logan, of Stephanie Forrester's manipulations, of betrayals and forgiveness. Taylor had convinced herself it was different this time. Ridge had changed. He'd come back to her after so many detours. But as the days turned to weeks, and Ridge made no move toward permanence, doubt began to creep in. They were lovers. They were parents. They were cohabitants. But they were not yet husband and wife. Taylor believed she needed marriage, not as validation, but as security. Not because she was unsure of Ridge, but because she was unsure of his ability to resist the gravitational pull of Brooke Logan. So she asked. And Ridge had no answer. Chapter 3, The Shadow of Brooke Logan. Brooke Logan was Ridge's eternal flame, his soulmate in the eyes of many, and a cautionary tale in the eyes of others. Their love was fierce but unstable. Taylor had played the role of second choice one too many times, and she wasn't willing to walk down that aisle unless she knew, for certain, that Brooke was no longer a threat. But how do you erase a decades-long love story? Katie Logan knew exactly what this tug-of-war was doing to her sister. Brooke had always worn her heart on her sleeve, and every time Ridge returned, she opened her arms, only to be left in the cold again. Katie, once a supporter of Ridge and Brooke's tumultuous romance, found herself questioning the wisdom in continuing that pattern. Katie's advice came gently but firmly, "Brooke, you deserve a man who sees only you. Maybe it's time to stop looking backward." She had someone in mind, Nick Marone. A man from Brooke's past, yes, but not a man who had ever truly wavered in his affections for her. Could Nick be the future Brooke never saw coming? Chapter 4, A Man at a Crossroads. Ridge stood at the edge of a cliff, figuratively, of course, though more than one Forrester has had their moment on literal cliffsides. He had two women, both of whom he loved deeply. Taylor was safe, nurturing, intelligent, a partner in every sense. Brooke was passion, unpredictability, a woman who challenged him, who brought out his worst and his best. He couldn't deny Taylor deserved a clean break from that triangle. But marriage? Again? Ridge had been through annulments, dramatic almost weddings, and reconciliations so numerous even the Forresters had lost count. Could he really walk into another union when he wasn't sure his heart had fully healed, or fully closed the chapter on Brooke? He stared at the ring he'd once given Taylor, now tucked away in a drawer. What did it mean? What would it mean if he placed it on her finger again? Chapter 5, A Daughter's Plea. Steffi Forrester Finnegan, Ridge and Taylor's fiercely loyal daughter, had long championed their reunion. She wanted her family back, whole and strong. After years of battling Hope Logan for Liam Spencer's affection, Steffi had grown weary of romantic triangles. She believed her parents belonged together. So when Taylor confided in her about the proposal, Steffi was elated, and terrified. What did Dad say? He didn't. The silence from Ridge echoed louder than any rejection. Steffi, determined as ever, cornered Ridge that same evening. With Finn by her side, she pleaded with her father to stop waffling. She loves you. This is your chance to build something stable. Don't mess this up again. Finn nodded in agreement, offering the perspective of someone outside the Forrester-Logan echo chamber. You and Taylor, there's peace there. That's worth something. Chapter 6, Will Spencer's Misguided Matchmaking. While the adults of the Forrester-Logan world navigated emotional landmines, another subplot brewed just below the surface, one equally messy, equally dramatic, and just as consequential. Will Spencer, now a young man eager to carve out his own identity, decided to play Cupid. His target? Luna Nozawa, an ambitious designer with ties to both the Forrester and Logan worlds. His obstacle? Electra Forrester, another firecracker from the famed family tree, and a woman he had just ditched. Will lied to Luna, telling her he and Electra were over, hoping to win Luna's affection. He orchestrated a chance meeting at Forrester Creations, playing the charming, misunderstood heir. But Electra wasn't as oblivious as Will hoped. And soon, what was supposed to be a quiet flirtation spiraled into a confrontation. Luna, torn between her feelings and her ethics, began to question Will's motives. Was he truly interested, or was she just a pawn in another Forrester-Spencer rivalry? Chapter 7, The Crossfire. As fate would have it, Hayes Finnegan, Steffi and Finn's young son, wandered into the chaos during a photo shoot gone awry. Electra, furious at being manipulated, had stormed into the studio where Luna and Will were mid-discussion. Voices rose. Accusations flew. And Hayes, clutching his stuffed giraffe, looked up at the adults with wide eyes as a rack of equipment teetered dangerously. It was Finn who arrived just in time to pull Hayes away, but not before Luna twisted her ankle trying to stabilize the backdrop. Electra fled the scene, mortified. Will was left to explain, once again, how his plans backfired, hurting more people than he intended. Chapter 8, Katie's Intervention. Back at Brooke's place, Katie decided enough was enough. She staged a sisterly intervention, not with tears, but with truth. You deserve a man who chooses you without needing to be asked. You've spent years hoping Ridge would grow up. Maybe it's time you grow past him. Her words stung, but they resonated. Brooke had been through this cycle too many times. Perhaps this time, she could break it. Katie handed her a phone number, Nick's. Call him. Or don't. Just, stop waiting. Chapter 9, The Answer. It took Ridge 48 hours. 48 hours of pacing, reflecting, arguing with his own conscience, and recalling every heartbreak Taylor had endured because of him. When he walked into her room, Taylor sat at her vanity, brushing her hair, pretending not to be anxious. He knelt beside her, not with a ring, not yet, but with words. I don't want to hurt you. I'm still scared. But I don't want to lose you. Taylor turned to him, eyes filled with tears. So, is that a yes or a no? He smiled, gently. It's a yes. If you'll still have me. Chapter 10, The Fallout. As Taylor and Ridge began planning their future, news traveled fast. Brooke found herself alone in her kitchen, the kettle whistling, her hands trembling. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply sat, finally free. She picked up the phone. Nick? It's me. Meanwhile, Electra, humiliated and furious, called her cousin's end, ready to unleash a new scandal that could topple Will's budding schemes and maybe take Luna down with them. And at the heart of it all, the Forrester legacy continued, threaded with ambition, love, betrayal, and rebirth.